Thank you so much, Lori. Welcome everyone to today's session, focus on specialty contractors in the ACC. Real quick, brief agenda here. So today, Lisa and I will be talking to you all about how you can really utilize ACC as a specialty contractor, really to the best of the solution's ability. We'll go over some current challenges specifically for subcontractors and specialty contractors, and then offer up how the Autodesk solution can really help you with those challenges. And then we will do a brief overview of all of the products in the Construction Cloud, and also a brief demo to really highlight, the things that we've seen with working with our subcontract clients and the challenges that they face and how we've supported them through customization and different workflow improvements via the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a Q&A session. So without further ado, quick intro slide here. I know Lori introduced us. I won't spend too much time on this, but my name is Vince Danielli. I've been with Imaginet for 15 years. And as Lori mentioned, I'm our manager of construction solutions based out of Detroit, Michigan. And I will say, I know Lisa always prods me for a fun fact, and I was trying to think of one, a fun one this morning, not related to our job or anything, but at one point in my life, I was able to, and I don't know if I can still do this or not, but it was always a fun thing back in college. I was able to eat an entire apple, core and all, in 3 bites or less. So I think my record was 2 bites. It's pretty ridiculous, totally unrelated to anything that we'll be talking about today, but just a funny quirk. So I'll pass it over to you, Lisa.
That is disgusting. I can see all of our attendees dropping. Everyone's leaving. I'm just kidding. Thanks, Vince.
I'll show you on the next one. So join our part 3, and I'll be ready to go.
No, thank you. Yeah, as Vince mentioned, my name is Lisa Stein. I am one of 3 construction engagement engineers over here at Imaginet. I've only been at Imaginet for about 2.5 months, but I'm coming here from about 7.5 years at Autodesk. I'm also coming from about 8 years in the industry. So I spent time as a licensed structural engineer focused on electric utilities. I am located in northern Colorado, about an hour north of Denver. And let's see, my fun fact is, so I live in Colorado. I really love mountaineering. We have 40-something 14ers out here, which are peaks that are over 14,000 feet tall. And I have summited 32 of them. So I'm hoping to get all of those done. But I don't know, I might be too busy now trying to eat apples.
That's right.
So, I don't know.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, well, I'm going to turn it over to you for the first few here.
Awesome, great. So yeah, as Vince mentioned, we're going to go through some challenges that that we know that subcontractors face based off of our conversations with a lot of you guys in calls and just doing discovery with you. So we've got 4 different challenges that we've kind of highlighted in terms of things that you, again, specifically subcontractors face in construction. So I'm going to go through kind of the challenge part and what those impacts of that challenge are. Hopefully a lot of that information resonates with you and you're like, yeah, I definitely feel this. And then Vince is going to come in, kind of save the day with how we can solutionize on those issues by utilizing the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So with that, we can hop into the first challenge here.
Solutionize. I like that.
Yeah, it's a good word. All right, so our first challenge here for subcontractors is limited access to the latest drawings and specifications. So when crews don't have the most current plans, it kind of opens the door for all kinds of really expensive, costly mistakes, which I'm sure you guys are aware of and have felt. Changes tend to get missed. We have spec errors that go unnoticed, and our field teams are often left wondering whether they're building the right thing at all. That kind of uncertainty can lead to a lot of rework. It can lead to a lot of wasted materials and resources, schedule delays, not to mention a lot of friction between teams. It also can put you guys in a really tough spot, both legally and financially. So if something goes wrong and it turns out that the team wasn't working off of the right information or the most up-to-date information, you're often the ones that are kind of stuck holding that responsibility. So at the end of the day, when drawings and specs are not up to date and are not easily accessible, subs cannot do their job effectively. You guys are kind of left working off of stuff that is erroneous, and that's a huge risk that we don't want your projects to see. But Vince is going to show us how we can make that not an issue for you at all.
Yeah, so really with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, primarily Autodesk Build and Docs, any of the project activity that's happening, as long as your teams are using the system properly, and we'll talk about implementation strategies and education as one of the final takeaways in this presentation. But ideally, people are working within the system in the cloud. They're updating documentation. They're publishing markups directly to the cloud platform, Autodesk Build and Autodesk Docs. So all of that information, as soon as you enter a markup and publish it, anyone that has access to that particular file or that particular sheet will immediately see those markups. And there are all different types of things that we can use to keep other field staff or other project members informed of these changes, either via issue notifications or correspondence. So the system really allows for that instant or that real-time coordination, where if someone on the team is inputting data, the rest of the team is able to see that. And also on top of that, if new versions of documents or sheets are being published by others whether it's from design or you're receiving updates from your general contractors on documents, storing those in your system, we have version control as well. So within either documents or sheets within Autodesk Build, we can compare versions and we can see what updates have happened, and maybe something changes in a document that impacts the work that you're performing on the job, and you need to issue an RFI or something related to that. All of these items are linked together. So great way to keep track of the project communication and project changes, and all of those are synced. And even more importantly, I'll probably touch on this in a bit more detail when I get into live demo, but for specialty contractors, if you happen to be working with general contractors or owners reps that are in the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform and managing their documentation in their own environment, the Autodesk Construction Cloud does have a feature called Bridge that allows you to bridge the information from their hubs or their accounts into your own projects that you're managing internally, that you have all of your documentation, all of your forms, all of your issues might be stored in your account, but we are able to bridge over currently documents and sheets. So it really keeps those items up to date and synchronized in real time. Yeah, all right, cool. Oh, and for specifications, same concept as sheets. Specifications, if we have updates to the specs, we have the ability to create addendums and revisions to the specifications that are published within the project, and you can look at different version changes there as well.
Thank you, Vince. All right, so our next challenge here is missed change orders and unclear scope. And this one can be specifically challenging, I think. So when scope isn't clearly defined and when change orders are not tracked in a consistent manner, they tend to lead to confusion, misalignment on our projects, and unfortunately lost revenue. So you might start working based off of outdated understanding of the project, or you might miss a change that requires additional effort or materials or resources. And that's a lot of time and money that's lost. It's often really difficult, if not sometimes impossible, to go back and prove that compensation is owed after the fact too. So that's something that I know a lot of folks in your shoes are challenged with. And then add that to the fact that there's many change processes that are still paper-based, and communication is often delayed because of that, because we're not working in that connected environment. And it's a perfect storm for errors, for things like misunderstandings, for breakdowns in trust. And so for you, that's not just a delayed operational headache, right? That's kind of a direct threat to your profitability and your credibility as an organization. So Vince is going to walk us through how we can mitigate those challenges.
Yeah, so big thing Lisa mentioned there are change orders being tracked. With the cost management tool that does come with Autodesk Build, it's a separate, we call it a separate module, but it is included with the purchase of an Autodesk Build license. In cost management, as a subcontractor, you can track your change orders. You can either manually enter them if you own your own hub and you want to keep track of the changes that have been issued to you, whether that's just storing the documentation or physically creating, we'll call it a potential change in your own system. From the point that it is labeled maybe as a potential cost impact, you can log that into your own system, and you're able to essentially track the communication and the approval process that's happening between maybe the general contractor and the owner. And then once they validate and they issue a subcontract change, you're able to pull that documentation down. And like I said, either store it in a file folder so you have a record of the approved subcontract change that's been executed and signed by you and all of the involved stakeholders, or if you're using the system as it's intended, you can log that as an actual SCO that's been approved, fill out the scope of work information, enter in dates and potential schedule impacts within that change order. So it is really keeping something that Lisa and I talked a lot about in our presentation to general contractors earlier this week, was you're creating an audit trail. So those things that maybe historically you don't know what the status of a change order is, or you don't know where it's at with the general contractor, it gives you the ability as a sub to really stay on top of it and see what outstanding changes have been pushed out there to the general contractor. And you can start poking them like, hey, we can't proceed with this work until this change order is approved, and that might push them to give you a notice to proceed and pay you out for that, even though they might be awaiting an owner approval on the change order. So all different types of scenarios and situations, but the system really does allow for a lot of flexibility in change management. As I mentioned, like all of this idea of the audit trail, anything that we're either receiving or entering into the system is automatically logged with a hard-coded date and timestamp. So for any reason, someone's trying to tell you, no, I sent that stuff over to you weeks ago, or I entered it into the system a few days ago and I haven't received a response, you can really hold people accountable, because there's no tricking the system. Even through the APIs, there's no way we can overwrite the hard-coded date and timestamp that activities are happening. So it really does provide a clear audit trail, and if you have to hold people accountable, you have that mechanism in place. You can't lie about the time you said you uploaded something because it's hard-coded in. And let's see, one other note that I had here for the automated workflows to reduce a delay in communicating scope changes. So again, this is probably more related to things like RFIs. You have full visibility. If you're assigned an RFI, or if you're a creator of an RFI, you're always attuned to the communication that's happening within that review process. So as a subcontractor, you might issue an RFI to the general. The system gives you the ability to track the reviews, the responses, and then ultimately, once that RFI has been answered, you're always aware of the current status. And as with anything, we can assign due dates. So if an RFI response is due by Tuesday and it's already Thursday, we're 2 days behind. Well, now we have both potentially a cost and a schedule impact. Again, just being able to hold people accountable for processing and approving and answering the requests that you're logging in the system is a critical component.
Thanks, Vince. All right. So inefficient tracking of labor and equipment tends to be a silent killer for our subs for their performance. When time and resource tracking is manual, you end up with a lot of delayed reports. You often end up with incomplete data. You have a huge lack of real visibility into what's actually happening in your project and on the actual construction site. And that means that project managers are flying blind. Nobody can make informed decisions about maybe things like staffing, so your personnel, your equipment, project timeline, schedule. It also makes it really difficult to understand who's being held accountable for what and identify any project issues early. So if we were able to kind of look at everything in a common environment, we could understand maybe there's a root cause attached to a lot of these issues, and there's a way that we could course correct that information or that part of our project before we get it to the end of our project, and perhaps end up with a more successful project outcome. The productivity bottlenecks tend to go unnoticed. We have a lot of resources getting wasted, and there's no clear record to back up what's been done or what still needs to be done. So we don't have a way to kind of understand what issues are still open or where we are in terms of issue closure or progression. So without real-time insight into labor and equipment use, you're really just left guessing. And we know that guesswork is a dangerous place to kind of operate from or make decisions from, especially in an industry where margins are super tight and timelines are even tighter. So Vince, I will hand it over to you.
Awesome. For this one, I'm going to save most of this for the live demo to show you this in action. But the key solutions here to this challenge are definitely a part of Autodesk Build and do tie into cost management, where labor hours and equipment budgets or equipment impacts are happening. So we have tools in the forms module, the forms tool of Autodesk Build to track daily logs and make it really easy for that distribution of a daily log report and have the approval from, say, a superintendent or a site foreman. You can set up permissions and review workflows. From that, we can generate all different types of reports, whether that's based on issues that are being tracked within the project or forms that are being completed. Whether that's a native, we'll call them a native report, which usually outputs either Excel or PDF, or we have more advanced reporting to dashboarding tools like Power BI, or it's currently in beta, but Autodesk has its own embedded dashboarding tool that's a little bit more robust, very similar to Power BI, but that's called the Insights Builder. And yeah, those integrated solutions really help for that advanced reporting, but also for integrations. I know Lisa mentioned schedule impact and some things related to work planning and task planning. The schedule tools are really dependent on external tools like Microsoft Project, Primavera P6, but then we can link that schedule information over to those more specific work plans. So it's definitely something I'll show in the live demo. But yeah, the solution definitely supports those challenges.
All right. And finally, let's talk about trade coordination, or more accurately, the lack of trade coordination. So you know that subs are often scheduled in conflict with one another, and there's little visibility into the overall sequencing of what work needs to look like for that project. And that means showing up to do your job and then sometimes finding out that another trade is in the way, or worse, that their work needs to be torn out and redone before yours can even begin. So these types of conflicts don't just tend to delay your work. They also obviously, and I'm sure you know, cost you money. They start to tarnish or damage relationships, and they put your reputation as an organization at risk. When responsibilities are not clearly communicated or assigned to specific users or companies or roles, it tends to create confusion and a lot of finger pointing, and all of that tends to stall our progress and also just, again, builds resentment when we're on a project with other folks. So poor coordination is one of the top reasons that you guys experience schedule slips, things like cost overruns and burnout, and it's often totally preventable with just better planning and communication that's going upstream. Vince.
Yeah, no one wants to show up to the job site ready to do work and then come to realize that one of the other trades hasn't completed their part of the project, and now all of a sudden you're trying to point fingers and pass the blame or log it, like whose fault is this, how can we do our work? Well, now it's a scheduled delay. So I'd say the biggest probably the biggest and easiest tool to track field activity is through the issues tool in ACC. So again, the issues tool, I'll demo this, but it allows us to capture photos in real time of the site progress. And if there's a problem that impacts your work, you can log that immediately, send that information right to the general contractor, and you've got validation on, hey, we can't do our job until this is resolved. And then the general contractor is aware that, oh, well, that other trade needs to come back in, and they have incomplete work here that they didn't let us know about. So again, just accountability is key. We'll show different instances of this. I already mentioned the schedule tools and work planning tie into this. We have visual tools like the issues tool that can that allow us to track site delays and things that are impacting the site. And maybe that isn't another trade. It could be a weather delay or something like that. But all different types of inputs that really allow us to have clarity in the project and what's going on. The visual tools I think that we have listed in this slide are more related to work planning and looking at kind of the Gantt charts, both in the schedule and the work plan tools, which I'll demo. And communication tools, I've already touched on that, either issues or correspondence, notifications via the system. All of this is really automated. And you know what? Before I go to the next slide, I'm realizing that this is the wrong next slide. I'll bring that back to the end, but Lisa, you can do your overview.
If you guys are having so much fun, you can join our other webinars that Vince was just marketing for us. So yeah, so we've been talking a lot about Autodesk Construction Cloud. Hopefully some of you have some familiarity with that, but I'm sure that that's new to many of you. So I want to just kind of level set on what we're going to be looking at, and then Vince will dive into a live demo of this platform or different components of this platform. And so the Autodesk Construction Cloud is a platform. It's a platform made up of different solutions, and you would be utilizing those solutions based off of what phase of a project you're working in. So we've got the 4 phases of a project kind of built out on this slide. We can see on the design side, we're looking at a product called BIM Collaborate. As we move over into plan or pre-construction, that's where we're looking at things like takeoff. Won't be touching too much on Assemble or ProS, any of those other products, but just know that those are really strategic acquisitions that Autodesk made several years ago to really make sure that we're covering all bases of the complete project lifecycle. When we move over to Build, which is really where our conversation is going to lie today, we're looking at the product called Autodesk Build, which is what Vince is going to spend most of his time in our call or in his demo. And then when we go over to operations or handover, commissioning, facilities maintenance, whatever you'd like to call that final stage, we're looking at a product called Tandem. But yes, what's important to note on this slide is there's that black ribbon at the kind of the middle of this page. The document management lies across all 4 phases of our project. And why that's really important is that we know that construction is typically not linear, right? We're not done with one phase of a project and then we never look back. It's really important that everyone in our project, no matter what phase of the project they work on or what phase of the project we're currently in, is working off of that same core foundational documentation, right? So what that kind of black ribbon shows is that it doesn't matter if I'm an engineer and I'm working in the design phase and I've got folks that are in the field and they're working off of the plans that I'm generating. We're working off of that same documentation. So what that means is if I make a new version of a drawing, that's immediately going to be available to the folks that are in the build phase of the project. So that means, a big issue we're talking about, a big challenge is working off of obsolete work and then having to go and redo it. And, everyone's getting upset and it's just not a good situation. With this platform and this kind of single source of truth, if there is an update or a version update made to any of our models or sheets or specifications, any of that key project information, it's immediately put into this platform. It doesn't matter what stakeholder I am or again, what phase of the project I'm working on, I have access to it. So we have confidence that everyone is working off of the latest and greatest information. But you can see there's a ton of different capabilities and workflows that we can accommodate under each of these different phases of our project and different modalities that live inside of the platform. But again, today Vince is going to go over a little bit of the project management, quality, safety, all that good stuff in mostly the build solution. So from there, Vince, I'll hand it over to you and we can go into a live instance.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. Let me try, see if I can transition this over to my other monitor really quick. I think this will work. Lisa, let me know if it's not showing the proper, okay. Are you able to see?
Yep, I see your Autodesk Build. Yep.
Cool. All right. So yeah, and Lisa, I just thought of this, this is fun little presentation that we're doing today. So if you want to throw me questions as I'm going through the demo, so it's not just cut and dry and me trying to mandate what's important, feel free to ask me questions as I go here. But I do want to highlight, in our experience working with subcontractors, the key thing that we run into is subcontractors have to be extremely flexible, and not only in the way that you guys are managing your own data, but in the way that the general contractor or your owner clients are mandating the frequency of communication or what you have to do to log activity, whether that's forms or marking punch items as completed or incomplete. Like all of those different things are really important. But when we talk a lot about our implementation, we talk about standardization. And really for subcontractors, it's a tough thing. Standardizing an environment that you have to be extremely flexible around can be a challenge. So I know we talked about version control and things like schedule impact, and those things are all great. But at a minimum, I want to start with one of the most simple solutions, that black bar that Lisa was talking about in her previous slide, which is really just the document management portion of Autodesk, and that's the Autodesk Docs tool. One cool thing about Docs, you get access to, something new came out. You get access to not only a cloud-based folder structure where you can store your own internal information, but I mentioned that idea of bridge. With just Docs entitlements, which is definitely, I would call it our entry level to the Construction Cloud, so the pricing accommodates that. You have access to a lot of tools that are really impactful. Whether it makes sense for you to purchase the whole project management and cost management portion of the Construction Cloud, which is Autodesk Build, or maybe it makes sense just to get on board and have Docs. So you can use things like the bridge tool and bridge files between your general contractors, your owner clients, into your own environment that you have ownership of, or things like the issues tool, tracking internal issues and using this as a communication tool. You have access to issues in the bridge functionality directly in Docs without having any additional licenses. So at a minimum, and we did mention specifications earlier as well. We can have uploads of our current versions of our specifications just with Docs. So I want to point out that if you're kind of on the fence, we don't know if we want to make the investment into the full project management suite that Autodesk offers. This is a really good entry-level product that you can get your teams acclimated to. And further down the line, if you do make that jump to go to Autodesk Build for project management, your teams are already going to be very familiar with the user interface. They're going to know how to use issues, version control, comparing documents, all of that at a very reasonable, pretty low cost point. So I like to highlight that Docs has a lot of functionality. We'll go into files real quick. If we were bridging, I'll just show, this one's kind of cool because we have a bridge going on here. If we're bridging documents and files to an external Autodesk hub, so for example, to explain this a little bit more detail, I've got a couple of Navisworks files loaded into my project. This little indicator icon is showing that this might be a unique scenario, but I'm pushing out my model updates from this folder into an external project. So a completely different project environment than the one I'm currently in. But this indicates that, hey, if I'm making updates to the version of my NWD or my NWF, those updates are automatically being exchanged to my target project. Conversely, we can also have incoming changes. So that's where I mentioned, if you're working with a general contractor and they've got subcontract documents, safety forms, things that you guys need to be aware of and see the updates to, could be in specification documents. Instead of pushing those out of your system, you would be receiving those updates. So you can map files and folders from external projects that are being managed by external entities into your own environment. And I mentioned this goes for documents, but also if we get into build, Autodesk Build, so the project management suite here, Sheets are also supported. So in Sheets, you see there's a little bridge icon here. So this shows that the general contractor or your AE firms that you're working with are creating updates to the document set, the field set. You're going to be able to bridge those directly into your projects as well. So there are tools natively in the Autodesk Construction Cloud that allow you to own and manage your own data, but still be synchronized with data from external, we'll call them hubs or external tenants. We have our own, I'll save that. I'm sure we've got a lot of marketing webinars coming up about our Pulse tool, but even outside of ACC, imagine it, we've developed a tool via our Pulse Exchange platform that does allow this synchronization, we'll call it integration between other CMS solutions like Procore. We're looking into adding connectors there for other platforms, potentially eBuilder, Project Site. So the bridge functionality is great within Autodesk itself when you're connecting one ACC hub to another. But if you are working with contractors that are in Procore or some of these other construction management platforms and solutions, here at ImagineIt, we're developing tools to link that data and to synchronize it back into your ACC environment. So really streamlining that data, making sure that you have complete ownership of it. With that, key points here, and I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. Lisa always makes fun of me. I try to be concise, but that never happens. The issues tool, I mentioned this a lot. I like to talk about the issues tool as a, don't think of it as everything that you enter as an issue. It's more of task management. In fact, I would prefer if these were called tasks rather than issues, because issues has a negative connotation. But in my opinion, this is the most robust and best form of communication that we have within the Autodesk Construction Cloud. We can create issues from scratch just by going to the issues tool, creating an issue. And the things that you have with issues, we can title the issue type. So random question. And then we have different categories and types that we can log our issues to. I'll explain the importance of this in a moment. But let's just say my random thing, I'm just going to log that under general communication or general. And I'll say, I can assign it to Lisa, set a location if we want, location details, set a due date on that response for her follow-up. So like, hey, I want to know this by tomorrow. You know, it's really, really important for me to know what Lisa had for lunch today. We can indicate a start date. It's really not necessary unless it's like, hey, I'm going to kind of preemptively log this issue and I need this task or something to start on a particular day. I don't need to log the start date here. I'm just generally posing the question. I'm saying, hey, I want to receive a response from Lisa, some communication by the 23rd. And everything else, like if we have root cause impact, this all impacts the reporting that you're getting out of the system. So you can customize your root causes and you can develop this to the nth degree. But if it's something that, you know, is a safety problem, human fatigue, human error, all of this rolls up to a lot of the out-of-the-box reporting capabilities that we have within the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And then if we want to generate, you know, some reference data to create a more robust audit trail, if I have communication from Lisa that says what she had for lunch on Tuesday and I'm following up, I don't know, it's the worst example I could ever imagine, but we are able to add attachments to our issues, or we're able to assign references to them once they've been created. So Let me just show you here when we create an issue, we can do this completely from scratch by just clicking this blue button. It's going to log all of that information. By assigning it to Lisa, she will get a notification, and we can control that notification frequency from instantly, hourly, or daily summaries. So if Lisa receives 100 issues assigned to her within one day, she probably, she could have that turned on to instantly, but she's going to be getting pinged every time she's assigned an issue. If she'd prefer just having kind of a daily summary of all of the issues and RFIs and everything else that she's assigned to in that day, she can control that notification frequency, or we can control it via project templates and settings when we set the project up. So anyway, when an issue is created, we've got the comments area. So if Lisa does get this little notification to her email, she'll have a quick link to the issue, and then she can respond back to me in the comments section. She can control the status of the issue and say, oh, hey, I haven't had lunch yet. I'm not really sure. I'm still trying to make up my mind. I'm going to change the status to pending. Or, hey, I already ate lunch. This is what I had. Put it in the comments, close it out, send a picture. I don't know. So the issues tool, the reason I'm really dwelling on this right now, not only can we log issues right from the issue log here, but when we're in sheets and documents, there's a tool to pin issues to specific items. So if we want to pin an issue to a drawing or create an issue from an RFI, this is kind of the glue that holds everything together in the Construction Cloud. And again, creating that audit trail of communication and the times that things were created. The activity log is always good insight that shows you those hard-coded timestamps. I created this right here at 1:36 p.m. Eastern time. It's open, and if Lisa responds to this or changes the status of the issue, that's also going to be logged in this activity log and give me that detail of when she responded to the issue. The other great thing about this, and I mentioned the different categories, we use this tool to capture punch items in the field. So through filtering, I can filter by issue category and say, hey, filter down to all of my punch items. Cool, I don't have any punch items in this project. But that would give you a list of any of the open, closed, pending punch items. And again, in the issue detail, you're going to see pictures, photos, due dates, references that are associated to the issue. And we're also able to create any type of custom inputs that we want for issues. So a lot of times I might create custom fields for schedule and cost and impact because they're not available out of the box within the issue. But anything custom that you want to track, you can specify that. Let's see, let's filter this down to just our, what do we have? A bunch of architectural punch items. Let's see, let's have category, we'll say architectural design review. So that might be a better visual. If these were assigned to people, their names would be listed here. If they had a due date, we would see what that due date was, and it would highlight it in red if it's still an open issue that hasn't been closed within the due date. And then what's really nice about this, we talked about some of the standard reporting. For punch items and things like that, if we filter our list down to the open punch items, we can directly export a report. And we can choose issue detail, issue summary, PDF, or Excel output. So there's some really cool stuff you can do very quickly and easily with these reports. In fact, if we want to automatically generate reports, we are able to do that through the report tool as well. So if you guys want to send, here's what our, you fill out a daily log. I'll get to forms in a second, but you fill out your daily log reports internally in your own system, and you want that to be distributed at the end of the week. All 5 of your daily log reports that you fill out, send those directly to the general contractor. You can set up a report template that's focused on just the daily log form, and then you can schedule that to automatically generate that report, say Friday afternoon, and hit the general contractor's inbox every week for the duration of the project. So there's some really cool stuff we can do with the reporting tool. It's basically you set it and forget it. Once the schedule is determined, those reports are going to automatically be hitting the general contractor's inbox at whatever time you specify. And let's see, 41. All right, we're going to try to spend 5 more minutes, and I promise we will wrap up with the Q&A as mentioned previously. The forms tool, we touched on daily logs. So anyone that has access to create, we can control this via permissions. I'm a project administrator within this project, so I really have full permissions over all of the tools within this project. But if you assign someone in the field the ability to edit and create a daily log report, all they have to do is go to the forms tool, either through the web browser or through the mobile app. There's a forms button that they can click on to create that form. Let's see, we'll go into our sample daily report, create a new one. And good, this is I call this a build intelligent report. It's kind of like a survey where when we're going to fill out our form, and this is available again via mobile, we can select the location. So if we have locations set up in the project, you probably wouldn't have this on a daily log for the overall report. You can attach other information like any attachment documents, like a visitor log that you maybe have filled out in the job site trailer. You take a photo of that and attach it as an attachment, or you can reference. So probably if I'm taking a photo of a visitor report, I just capture it with my camera right to the project and attach that photo to the form. But you'll see these different sections. So something like a work log, we can add our work. We can enter the company that performed the work, the discipline, the role of that person, and you can filter these out. You don't have to use all of these fields. The amount of workers that were on the job site, how many hours were performed that you're logging, total regular hours, number of OT hours per worker, and then the total amount of hours. So some really cool stuff in logging the hours. And with the work log here, you can add several different line items to this. So if you're tracking different type of I don't know, labor work that you're performing on the job site, you can do that through this section. If you have materials being delivered to the job site, you can add materials in a very similar way. Add your quantities and units. And then same goes for equipment. If you're trying to log any equipment that was in use, the number of hours used for that equipment, any special comments, it's all going to log into the form. And when you submit the form, and I probably should have filled out a few things here, it's like require the signature, but yeah, let's just do material. It's easy. Brick, quantity, 1,000 units. Unit for that is just each. Save my comment. When we go to submit our daily report, this one requires signature. So I can't, we would set this up different for a subcontractor, but in this case, the foreman has to just scribble a signature in there, submit that. And now the form is logged in the system. So when we're doing this daily, we have daily reports that are being filled out. They're logged within the form section of build. And this is where if we wanted a collection of all of the week's daily reports to be logged into one report, that's where that report tool, we can gather the information that's entered within all of those forms through that week with an intelligent form like the survey type that I was just showing you there. We can aggregate the hours. We can do a lot of different stuff because we're putting those into intelligent fields. You're not limited to that. If you want to just enter something like a JHA, I think this one is a smart PDF. Yep. So maybe you have some PDF forms that you're used to filling out with paper and pencil. You can digitize them and you can make those have intelligent field inputs. So I don't know why this one's taking so long to load, but based on uploading smart PDFs, you can have text input, check boxes. We can really format these smart PDFs any way that we want based on what we're allowed, what types of fields we're allowed to enter in a smart PDF. And then really the output of this It's less intelligent for reporting, but it's still better than having to rely on someone filling out a piece of paper, scanning the document in, or taking a picture of it and entering it in the system. The smart PDFs work really well via the mobile app as well. Let's see why that was sometimes forced a refresh. Yeah, there we go. So there are a couple of things we'll automatically input. But you can see, activity, what the hazard was, any corrective actions, stuff like this, like a JHA. We would prefer to convert that to a more intelligent report that would flag people if something was a problem, or force them to create an issue in the project that automatically gets assigned to a safety supervisor. But even in a smart PDF, we do have the opportunity to just log what simple forms that you might have, save the inputs, submit them, and then we can tie workflows to these forms. Okay, one very last thing, I promise I'll get out of forms, but didn't touch on RFIs at all. Very simply, I'll just take one that's an open RFI. So as a subcontractor, you can present an RFI, create the RFI. And if you feel like this has schedule, or even more importantly, if there's a cost impact, because another subtrade didn't do their work properly, you can mark this cost impact as yes. And even better, if we feel like this should spark a potential change order, from the reference area, we've got this cost tool. We can label that as a potential change order. Anything that was in the description of the RFI would pull over into that PCO. So if we create one from scratch, here's our RFI question and the RFI, the title of the RFI. And when we go to create that, automatically, this idea of the audit trail being so important, over in cost management, who's ever managing that change process will see, it should be at the bottom here. There it is. So I've got this PCO number 18. Here's our RFI request. It's logged as a potential change order. Now it pulled over detail directly from that RFI, so the name and the question. And if I scroll down to my references, there it is. We've got the back reference to the physical RFI that was labeled as a cost impact. So the system is great because if you're using it properly, you have this breadcrumb trail that you can follow. If I need to see more detail, or if there's some images or additional files attached to that RFI, we can click right on it. It takes us directly back to the RFI, and we're not having to chase down documentation. We're not having to chase down what the RFI details were. We can go and look at this directly and then proceed from there. A lot of this stuff we can customize in project templates and do a whole lot of customization to really refine this environment to suit a subcontractor and specialty contractor. So I'll leave it at that. There's so much more we can show with the platform to support subs, but I do want to just hop on my soapbox for a moment. Let me see if I pull this up. Let me switch there we go. So we have this Why Imagine It slide. Oops, we didn't update all of these with the proper workflow, but as a partner of Autodesk, we have a service leg of our company here at Imagine It. That's specifically in construction, that's the team that I support. We have worked with many subcontractors, specialty trades, sub-trades to really implement the construction cloud properly for their experience. So it's not just that, this tool is not just catered for general contractors. It definitely can support the subcontractors, especially when we're talking about tools like Bridge and owning your own data. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is our implementation method that really starts with a discovery process. We want to understand how you guys are working within your day-to-day workflows, the different pain points that you're currently experiencing with either your manual data entry, could be paper data, or even just in the workflows in general. You might be supporting a technology stack that's pretty disjointed and disconnected. Our goal here in implementing the Autodesk Construction Cloud is to eliminate those disparate solutions and combine them into one solution that works for everyone on your project team. So there's a number of different ways to approach this. Obviously, a short webinar is just we're kind of giving you the tip of the iceberg and what we can support here. But we encourage you, if you're interested in any of these solutions, please reach out to Imagine It, reach out to your account manager, and let's get a call scheduled to kind of go through some custom use cases, and we can be a little bit more prescriptive in the work that we've done with past clients. So I will leave it at that. Do we have any questions in the Q&A today?
Thanks for that, Vince. And yeah, we have a couple of questions before I ask them. I did have McDonald's on Tuesday, and today I had Qdoba. So a question that came up is, this all looks really good. This is a really robust platform, but it feels like it could be a little bit overwhelming. And if I'm currently working on a project, how would I start to implement some of these functionalities to start seeing an immediate ROI?
Awesome question, and probably one that we get from every one of our clients that we work with is, we've invested in this, we've made the decision to invest in this ACC solution. How can we get instant ROI, or at least as fast as possible? And the way that I like to describe that is, yes, you see that there are many different capabilities of the solution. I kind of highlighted that even Autodesk Docs is a great tool in itself, but what we try to identify are those instant ROI tools that you can implement. So we might focus, when we're going through an implementation, let's highlight the major pain points. Let's resolve those with the basic tools that we have access to without going to the nth degree of customization or custom reporting through Power BI, detailed fields and issue templates. Let's focus on getting that immediate ROI. And let's do that in a phased approach. We might say that, hey, we heard this during our discovery, and you guys are just having problems with getting the communication from the field, logging it, and then having a general report to say, hey, there are this many outstanding issues and RFIs. How do we track that? It's as simple as just making sure that people are putting in things like due dates into the issue. That all flows up to a very simple homepage that I did not highlight, which I'll show on my screen here. So every project in this project-based environment, on the homepage, everyone that has build will have visibility to a homepage. And one thing I really emphasize is, for an individual project member, you have this little heads-up display that tells you anything that you've specifically been assigned to. So, hey, I've been assigned one submittal, I've got 2 forms that are in progress, and there's 1 open meeting item that I've been assigned to. I can quickly get to these by just clicking these links. It takes me exactly to the area in the platform where I'm assigned that object. And as project managers, project administrators, you're able to see the work status, not only for things that are assigned to you, but for the collective of all of the people in the project. So, hey, as a PM, I'm seeing, shoot, we've got 7 overdue submittal items. What the heck are those? Click on that. Brings me right to the submittal log, filters this view down to those overdue submittals, and I can start to track, who is responsible for this, who's got the ball in court. Looks like Melissa's got a bunch, so I'm gonna ping Melissa and go, hey, what the heck's going on with these submittals? We needed a response last week and you haven't responded to them. So natively, the solution is already pre-set up to support this type of visibility to the project without really any customization whatsoever. The only thing that we have to do is train the team on how to properly use the tool in the first place, how to create the submittal, how to create issues. So we like to tackle we'll call it the low-hanging fruit objects. And then over time, as your company becomes more adept in using the system, that's when we can start to open up the Pandora's box of features and the background, the back end, the database for reporting and all different types of stuff. But even for reporting, kind of cross-project reporting, it takes a long time for you to have a substantial amount of data to really get good reporting, good cross-project reporting. So let's start small. Let's roll this out as a phased approach. And a lot of those things that are the most impactful are those low-hanging fruit objects that are tackled in the phase 1 of the implementation.
Thanks, Vince. All right, and then the other question we got that I think we'll have enough time to handle is we have someone that's really curious about customization. So like that there's all these different issue types and forms and things that we can build out, but they're concerned that, like, for example, issues, there's a lot of different choices in terms of issue types, and they want to make sure that their team is really succinct and streamlined. So is there a way to customize issue type that's speaking directly to the business of the specific subcontractor?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a permissioning system that we can assign to issues, and this is kind of general, like this is based on role-based permissions. We can give them view and edit. They can assign issues internally to their own team. But really more importantly, as a project manager, sure, there might be a lot here. Even out of the box, there's a lot of different issue categories. Through the different phases in the project, maybe commissioning is one of the last things. We probably are doing testing on systems and stuff. So as we're early on the preliminary phases of construction, we might want to deactivate a particular issue type. So within the project, you just deactivate the issues that are not in use during that time. And then when someone does go to create an issue, they're not going to have a whole bunch of different options. And even more importantly, once you deactivate an issue type, if we know we're never going to use, say, the warranty issue, that's inactive in my project, we don't have to turn it back on. If we want more categories, we can create more categories and more types. So yeah, Lisa, we can make this very, call it surgical, like really tactical, the way that we approach the adoption of using things like issues, assigning them to certain people. And with those permissions, if we want to just keep this, all of our sub trades or general contractor, we want them to be visible of certain things, but we don't necessarily want them to be able to create their own issues. We can limit their permissions, and then they're really only notified when they're either added as an assignee to an issue, or they're mentioned in what we call the watchers list, just to be informed that an issue has been created that might be an impact to the project.
Wonderful. And then I would just add on to that, this is not something you would have to build from the ground up every time. You could get this to a place that you really like this. Maybe this is, a specific project type, you need these specific issues. We could just save that as a project template like Vince is showing. So if you had it as a project template, you could just grab that when you're making a new project, and all of that foundational information will already be built out for you. So you don't have to start from scratch. Yeah, there you go.
Excellent. Yep. So yeah, in the template, we can set up all of the different issue types. We can deactivate the statuses right in the template, and any new project you create is automatically going to apply those standards to it. So yeah, it's a really great tool. We can standardize it. We can customize it. I realized, Lisa, the one thing I didn't touch on in the demo was one of your favorite things, the schedule and the work plan tools. But maybe we save that for a different webinar specifically.
Yes, sounds like a plan. Well, thank you guys so much for your questions. Thanks for your attendance today. In the chat, there is Sarah from Imagine It. Her email address is in there. So if you have any follow-up questions, or you want to chat with one of us again, if you want a long call, you'll want to book with Vince. If you want to talk quickly, you can use with me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for your time today. Hope that this was helpful, and take care, and hope to have you guys on another webinar soon.